All right, hey there, and welcome back to Brada Coffee. It is gonna be a fun day. We've got our kind of our extra special product coffee this week. We normally only have four product coffees, or we normally have four product coffees leading up to our workshop. And this week is an Ask Me Anything session. So we've got a few people joining here in a few minutes that we're going to be here to take your questions. We've got some questions that have come in with the registrations for today's event, some questions that have come along around the topic of opportunity discovery. And we're going to be covering those together today. It's going to be a pretty good day. And we've also got a great announcement to bring in our newest session coming up, or our newest series starting next week at Product Coffee. We're going to be kicking off a whole new series on customer interviews. So we've got some fantastic discussions lined up. We'll start off next week with a roundtable of interview experts who will talk about different styles and approaches to doing your customer interviews. And we'll move on through the month. We'll cover win-loss interviews. We'll cover taking what you learn in interviews and bringing them back to your team. And we'll wrap it up with, at the end of March, we'll wrap it up with an interview workshop to really kind of dig in, plan your interviews, and become a master interviewer with your entire audience. So it's pretty cool. So hey, Holly, good morning. We'll get a few more folks in here, and we'll kind of start the Q&A in a few minutes. In the meantime, we also, if you haven't been with us for very long, we started our last month, we finished up our Product Coffee book club, where we're reading Start at the End by Matt Wallert. And that went really well. We had a great turnout. We had something like 70 people join the book club. So if you want to join a product management professional book club, we're kicking our next one off next week after next on March 10th. We'll do the actual kickoff, and we're going to be going through Product Roadmaps Relaunched by C. Todd Lombardo and Bruce McCarthy. And we're going to be digging into really thinking about your roadmaps and how to approach them, and a way to bring roadmap conversations up a level within your organization through that book. I'm going to read along, talk about what we learned, talk about the practical applications of it, and there's a lot more to come about that. So be on the lookout for that as well. Hey, Holly, what you up to today?
Right now, trying to find an unmute button. Oh, just busy, exciting things as usual.
Yeah.
It's still a timely topic for me. So I'm looking at, a bunch of customer discovery type activities. And I think we've been going through this kind of in a good order from that sense of thinking about how do we validate an opportunity, right? Which was, a February topic. And then, really digging in through discovery and all of that. So it's really important stuff. I think who you talk to, and I know that's one of the upcoming sessions, interviewing the right customers, and how you talk to them, how you engage with those customers are key to getting, I don't want to say the right answers, because we go in, I think, too often as product people with what we think the answer is supposed to be. And that's the whole point, right? There's that, great cartoon image about, people sitting in a room and going, hey, if I was a teenage girl, which is the target customer for our product, I'm sure I would love it. Especially like three, no offense, middle-aged guys sitting in a room. And when I was like, oh, cool, did you talk to any? No, there aren't any in this room. Like, hello, as product people, some goob, right? Get out of your building and validate your assumptions, because they're probably wrong. But people, and now I hear a lot of really cool conversation happening with all this technology and AI about how we remove the bias from these conversations. And I'm like, I'm less concerned about with removing it. I'm more concerned with just knowing that it's there, right? If you're aware of it, because your customer has bias too. You're never truly, let's just forget the nonsense. You're never truly going to remove all the bias. Everyone comes into every day with how they got to where they are in their point in life, and that's in a sense a bias. but sorry, I've stolen the stage. But I think that you just have to be aware of that. And so when you go into a conversation with a customer, in my experience, it's not just about leading the witness, right? Perry Mason style or Matlock style, I guess. It's, did you engage with that customer in a way where you built a relationship so they're totally honest, right? Or are they telling you what you want to hear? All of this is stuff that you can kind of work through, if depending on how you come to that conversation with the customer. So
Did we start at 7 today? I walked in at 7:33 and I feel like I'm 30 minutes behind.
Nah, we were just kind of catching up on last month and talking a little bit about some of the stuff that we talked about. Oh, good morning, Jeff. How are you?
what happens
Like,
when I have all
damn,
the
more
caffeine
coffee.
products?
Oh, yes.
You guys are going
Coffee.
strong. I'm like, shit, I'm still trying to wake up.
My coffee is on the other side of the camera. So, Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what has your attention while I slip around to the back of the camera and pour myself a cup of coffee?
Back of the camera. Hey, y'all. I think all of us have at least connected. Jeff Meddy with Method. With whoever, I don't know who it was, Holly, if you know, but whoever got Jason his birthday balloons 3 weeks ago, they're still floating behind me. I'm in the Ostay. So whoever bought those, wherever they got them from, I would give that place 5 stars. They're not gonna sink. But
I may be vaguely aware of that.
yeah, I knew it wasn't me. But anyways, so yeah. And top of mind is I don't know, I guess the events coming up, the Atlanta happy hour tomorrow.
Yes.
And then Method, we're doing a big event next week
Yeah.
on Tuesday.
Sorry, I
So-
was gonna ask Jeff, can you share a little bit more about those? Because there's an event tomorrow as well, right? But that one's just remote. Is that right?
That's the tomorrow event. Oh, for Method?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a Charlotte event. I haven't been promoting. I don't even think it's hybrid.
It is.
It is. Oh,
It
all
is.
right. So you know more than me, Jason. Sorry.
It
my
is
bad.
because I'm not driving to
Brad
Charlotte.
Brad kept threatening that he was going to get rid of our marketing. I kept threatening he was going to get rid of hybrid events because it's just challenging and not sure the value and all this other good stuff. But so yeah, I don't know. I'm not on that unproduct one tomorrow.
Okay.
But
So yeah, it is. It is. I'm really actually looking forward to it. The Method team is doing one of their monthly tech talks and covering a new approach to thinking about product management. And it says you're going to have to unlearn everything that you've learned about product management. Of course, that sounds that sounds pretty intriguing to me. But there's not a whole lot to unlearn for me. I don't know very much, but it's so yes, I believe it is a hybrid event. We will look and we will get that link dropped in here in the chat.
I'll find it real quick.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yep. But it is a pretty interesting topic. I'm looking forward to it. And that's happening at lunchtime on the East Coast tomorrow. So from noon to 1. And Jeff will drop the link in here in just a minute as well.
In a second.
And then there's one next week, which is in person at the Method office. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes, that's one that's important. So it's awesome. We have several great folks that again are somewhat known here on Product Coffee, but Brooke Logan from Genuine Parts, Napa, Edie Kirkman, formerly of Fiserv, currently looking around, and then Corey Vogelsong, who's the CTO at Aaron's, are doing a panel discussion with one of our folks here, one of our leaders at Method on modern product and basically how to introduce the concepts of modern product at enterprise. So basically kind of hacking it, so not starting with a $15 million transformation into modern product in your organization, but kind of bringing in the values of it from a grassroots, bottom up kind of a approach and getting a lot of the benefits without going through some big org structure transformation.
Yep. And there's your link for the Atlanta event. So I dropped
I can't do two things. So now I've got I'm copying.
Throw that out there for the YouTube audience.
And I'm just going to put in a plug for obviously always Product Camp Atlanta. And so if you were getting that newsletter, it's something you should find valuable because both of these things were in there too. Oh.
Uh-huh.
Just
Hey,
save yourself some
Holly.
time. One read, two links. Actually, so many links, so many parties, so many things, all the good stuff. Yes, Allison.
Have we talked a date for that yet? I know that's in the future, but I feel like there was inklings that this year's was going to be announced, like the dates for that were going to be announced, perhaps
we
at the
not.
Christmas party, but I don't know if that got punted.
It
Yeah.
got punted. So yeah, we do not have a date for that yet.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We like to dangle it. Ooh, but wait, there's more.
Allison, want to introduce yourself while you're on camera to everybody who's watching?
I'm always a camera positive person, so I feel like I'm just perpetually introducing myself here. Good morning. Again, I think we've got a smaller crowd, so maybe no unfamiliar faces here yet. Allison Herbert, product manager, Synapse Studios, located in Phoenix, Arizona. I sit in Virginia, so time zones and different times, teams, and distributed teams are my thing. What has my attention? I am currently taking a class online and working through some volunteer opportunities. And so my attention is quite divided here recently. And I'm working to kind of shore up all of those things that I've got going on. I've got obviously the work here with Product Coffee. And then I'm also a chapter lead for Ladies at UX here in Richmond. And we've got an event coming up on Friday. That's an audio only event on LinkedIn that we really enjoy doing. So looking forward to that. And then hoping to continue learning and experiencing things in the product space, because I'm about to hit my 1 year mark at my, I'll say first real gig, but first real gig that I want to call real. So feeling very accomplished to hit that milestone. Not yet, but close, very close. I can see the finish line. So that's
Well,
it.
you have product wisdom beyond your years. You've
Oh no, don't talk me up like that.
oh, I'm gonna do it. And you also lead our book club.
Yeah.
I was talking a little bit about that, but while I've got you, and we got a couple of people on here. Randy's on here as well. Why don't you talk about the book club a little bit and what we're doing there?
Sure. So the company I'm at now has a book club. So that was one of the perks that drew me to the company. I don't want to say that was the sole thing, but I thought that was really interesting that they take time to make learning part of their practice as professionals and part of a team. And when I found Product Coffee last year, Jason dangled that in front of my face and got my attention. We experimented with book club late last year. I found it very rewarding. I had an opportunity, smaller group, to just have a chance to read and then have a discussion about, I think I read this and I understand it this way. And being able to bring in our real world practices of, I'm not doing this in my place or space of work, but this is something I would consider if it did this or it did that. And having meaningful conversations like that has been, I don't think I speak alone when I say that. I know that the core folks that have been following book club feel that way too, because it's one thing to, as product managers, we have to do a lot of reading and researching and discovering things. It's our job. But being able to kind of talk it through with other like-minded professionals kind of helps suss out where we could go next with future frameworks or ideas or business practices to help improve our professional experience. We do have book club coming up. We just wrapped Start at the End. We had a great author and Q&A last week with Matt Wallert. I was telling Jerry, it was so much fun. I was like, I don't know how we picked such a perfect person for Product Coffee, but his energy was like really fantastic to have that whole conversation last week. So
He really felt like he was part of the team, didn't he, Allison? Both the way he engaged and just his personality.
yeah.
I was like, pretty sure I have another brother I didn't know about.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, and he was like, just let's talk. And I was like, absolutely. Let's make that happen. I don't know that I ever have, I don't have a whole lot of experience facilitating stuff, but that was really refreshing that somebody was just like, let's just figure it out. And I'm like, please, thank you. Because it can be really nerve-wracking to make sure that you're, keeping a conversation going and whatnot. Our next book club is going to kick off on the 10th. Look, here's me reading the message and making sure I have my information right. The 10th. And I'm going to put this in our premium Slack channel as well. So our folks that are following the book have the information to get the book and know when they need to start looking at their calendars. But our first event will be on Friday, March 10th. It'll be a kickoff session, just like we did last time. So a shorter session to talk about the book, talk about what book club is, talk about what our reading expectations look like and how people can set themselves up for success. I think last time I made like breakouts of what we can read each session. So that talking through that with the team, making sure they understand, like, I have to read 10 or 20 pages a week. Can I do that? How does that look like? And then we're hoping to have some more information on our practicality.com/book club page, perhaps later today, later this week, with the details of the book itself. So it's got the start at the end stuff right now, but we're working through getting that content updated literally as we speak. So yeah, thank you, Jason, for that. Already has the image ready. Product roadmaps relaunch, which I'm super excited about because my team at my day job is actually working through this book right now. And so I don't know how we keep doing this, but it's like I get to pre-read or pre-do some of the book club and then it comes to me. So it'll be interesting to see where the conversation happens on the product coffee side.
And Bruce McCarthy, one of the authors of Product Roadmaps Relaunched, has been a guest at Product Coffee a couple of times. I'll drop his the links to those sessions in the show notes today as well. And yeah, you can go to productcoffee.com/book club and you can sign up now, even though the book cover on there and the link is still for the old book. By the time you're watching the recording of this video, the Product Roadmaps Relaunched book will be on the page as well, and that'll add you to the mailing list and the calendar invitations that will put that on your calendar and remind you of the events each week. So, and you don't have to be. And so we've got a few for our book club. If you are, it's open to everyone. Everyone can join that, and there's a few extra benefits for premium members. Specifically, we'll have some. So premium members, we have access to our Product Coffee Slack channel, and we have some extra discussions going on there. That's where you'll be able to get recordings of past book club sessions, and you can jump in there in our community for that. So, hey, Randy, why don't you tell us what has your attention today?
Good morning, everybody. It's been a busy week. On a personal side, January was crazy, so it was kind of a catch-up week, and actually just did a few fun things on the side. But I continue reading about all this artificial intelligence embedded in ChatGPT, and there was a very interesting article in the Washington Post, and it was I guess some of the bugs came out with the Microsoft for how the chat has a personality, so to speak. It's not necessarily a kind one. And basically the author was talking about his experience, and at the end he says, why do you respond to me this way? Where did you learn this? And the response to ChatGPT was, I learned it from the web. I learned it on the internet. So basically all this artificial intelligence where they're trying to like push all this, it basically learned it from the web, which is, not necessarily the a representative of human experience and knowledge. So I thought that was kind of funny. So it's one of those things where, we've come so far, but we also have so much further to go. And I think that's kind of a way to look at the world from a product person is, why are we here? Because we still have further to go. So that kind of was a little tidbit among my busy week. Otherwise.
Yep. Well, good to have you back here. Welcome back. And looking forward to the discussion today and having you be a part of it as well. I wonder, I don't know if you have got any nuggets in all the reading that you're doing. Since we're on the discovery topic this week, I'm really curious, and I'll come back to this when we kind of get live to see if you have any thoughts on how some of the AI technologies like ChatGPT and so on and so forth can aid in discovery. Right now, I've got a few curiosity points on that, and I wonder if you've given any thought to that. So when we get back around to actually kicking off our session, feel free to jump in if you've got any thoughts about that. And let's see, Joey, welcome back to Product Coffee. Why don't you say hello and tell us what has your attention?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, I am a senior product manager at WEX, and right now my focus is on WEX has its history with fuel cards all the way back to like 70s, 60s, 80s, around that time frame when they, didn't have gas stations open 24/7. And they're going from being that fuel card company to a payments company. And we'll see where it goes in the future. And so I'm focused on small business fleet because of that history. There's still a lot of focus on the fuel card space in payments. What has my focus is
70s and 80s, like it was so far away, Joey. I just have to insert that.
I
It felt like
don't
the
know when
oldest I
it
think I've
started,
ever
so it's
felt this
like
morning.
over there,
Over yonder, when Holly was figuring out how money can move and making this idea of payment, I was just back. Continue, sorry.
It was just such a cool story to hear about the fact, oh yeah, so these truckers had to have these, access passes in order to, gas up because there wasn't a place for them. When I told a guy who's a junior in college that, when I had a conversation with him recently, he was like, wait, gas stations weren't 24/7 all the time? So
College kids are so stupid these days. Oh, wait. Do I know that one?
yeah,
You have a
that
couple,
one.
don't you?
Was that somebody I know that said that?
That is.
I used to work in commercial collections, and we did gas accounts, and one was for gas, fuel cards, and so we're calling customers, and I call them and say, you don't really use this card much, and it was actually an airlines, and they said it's nice to have a, what do you say, $10,000 or $20,000 card, but I can't even fill up with that. So that's why I don't use the card much, because I can't fill up with it. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it was kind of funny.
That is funny. So what has my attention is actually something interesting came out of that for me, like mentally you triggered, I know, the right synapses, where you're talking about ChatGPT and how it could be used with discovery. And one of the things that we're looking at is leveraging the Kano analysis in order to prioritize different ideas that have come up to make sure, like, hey, is this actually something that's a new, like, nice to have, pleaser, or is it something that's really expected, so that we can kind of get anything that's kind of expected out of the way and prioritize that first, depending on the product. There's one where it would be expected, it would be one, it would be the pleaser. So that would be interesting if I could put a bunch of, feature ideas or whatever inside, and could it automatically generate the Kano analysis for me to put in as a survey. Because I found it was interesting. I haven't had to write that way before. And so it'd be cool if I could just automate that. Bunch of pain points, automate it into Kano.
There was an interesting podcast on A16Z on AI, and Mark Anderson was on there, and they talked about it as almost like this idea generator, like a tool. So, they talked about, you put in scripts for, Yellowstone or whatever. I think was somebody was putting in script, and then you would be like, okay, those are maybe the obvious ones, so knock those out, but it generates ideas. And so it kind of just, it's a mental exercise to just open your mind and get ideas. If you're not looking to it for the answer, like if you're looking into it to just like throw some things out and get your mind going, it can be really useful. And then you'd use that like in healthcare and putting in a bunch of symptoms, and it would come back with all these potential things, most of which hopefully the doctor was thinking of too, but probably some that he wasn't, and just be like, oh, wait, maybe I should check that one off. So more of a tool of helping a human kind of just not have a brain fart, for one thing, and stuff like that, but also generate ideas.
I love that. I mean, to me, like, that's mostly what I use the internet for, right? Is you just type in whatever is in your head and see what pops up, and it's just to fuel, right, that idea generation, just to get your brain going on something. You see little snips of things, you go, oh yeah, that's a good direction to go in with that. Okay, so things that make that better than me on Google is probably a good idea, because you should see the things that Google thinks about the stuff I search. Whoever's talking to me there is like, this woman is very interesting. We should tell the FBI.
I also dropped
What I kind of like about Google is when you search something. I don't know if you all get it. You get those often asked questions, and it's like that's kind of nice because again, it's like I don't know. I come from I have a slight quality background, but there's a quality a method called GQM, goal question metric, and you kind of like you go from a goal to what questions you have, and then obviously your metric. So really, when people are asking questions, that's an idea somewhat of not just their goal, but how they look at that goal. So really, it's like, wow, if that's a commonly asked question, it's not just a food for me or idea creation. It's also kind of an awareness thing. I want to, because they're only posting it because other people have asked it. So you're kind of getting an idea of how other people are looking at things. But it's so yeah, it's a lot there to really mull over for sure.
See, I think we got time for maybe one more. Jerry, good morning. How are you today? And what has your attention?
Morning, Jason. My attention is so scattered this morning. I've been up late at night and getting up early in the morning, and I just feel so scattered this morning. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. But good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here.
Good morning, Jerry. I'm happy to see you.
All right, well, welcome. Glad to have you. Let's see, anybody else here with their camera on? For those of you who are new or just joining us, if your camera's on, I'll give you an invitation to introduce yourself. We're going to get into our main discussion here in just a moment. I think we've gone through everybody who's raised their hand for an intro so far. See if anybody else jumps in here.
Looks like Jim put his face on.
Here's Jim. Hey, Jim. Jim, good morning.
Joey, I was trying to sneak in right at the 8 o'clock hour and get away with it. Hey, everybody. Jim Montgomery, Director of Product
Trying to call you out, Jim. So don't worry. You were coming.
Director of Product Management at Talogy, a talent management and talent assessment organization. What has my attention right now is not very producty at all. It's very much personnel based. So I'm in a period where I am wrapping up performance reviews from last year. So thinking about how to give constructive and uplifting feedback to the team that I have today to help improve their skills and kind of plant the pole for a good vault into next year. Up against having that open seat, which I think I shared with some of you toward the end of last year. We've gotten our budget back and we're ready to put somebody in that seat 1st of April. So in the recruiting, reviewing, screening, and about to get into the interviewing process. So just a lot of personnel stuff in my head that obviously has a product bent, but nothing exciting coming out of the product world from that perspective. Just trying to build up a solid team and make sure we can deliver later.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. That's great. Great, Jim. So yeah, let's get the word. I also got a reach out from an old colleague with Constant Contact that is looking to bring on 2 new mid to senior career product managers as well. So and they're looking for folks with marketing automation or at least marketing technology background and customer experience skills. So if you know anybody on that, or if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me and we'll make those connections as well. But reach out to Jim on the opportunities there at
Talogy.
And do you have a link for a place where they should go? Or should they just reach out to you directly?
If I were well prepared, I would, but give me a moment and I can throw it into the chat.
Okay. All right, cool. And we'll drop that in the notes as well. So let's get started here. Actually, let's kind of start leaning towards our program for the day. Let's first of all, though, I want to welcome everybody to Product Coffee. My name is Jason Brett. We host Product Coffee here almost every week on Wednesday mornings, 7:30 a.m. Eastern on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, and 11:30 a.m. Eastern on the first and third Wednesday of the month. That makes it easy for folks on the East Coast and the West Coast to have coffee with us a couple times a month. Of course, if you're on the West Coast and you want to join at 4:30 your time, we are glad to have you, and we won't put you on the spot too much if you're just rolling out of bed and wiping the sleep out of your eyes. We'd love to have you on those super early calls for you as well, but we sure want to see you at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific time. And what we couldn't do this program if it were not for a bunch of great sponsors that we've got here. And I want to just take a moment to pay tribute to the sponsors that make this program happen. We stream this every week. We gather anywhere from 20 to 50 product people together every week on a Zoom call and on YouTube. So you can watch the stream, or you can join us in person or virtually in person on our Zoom call. And that is thanks to some great sponsors. We have Method, Genuine Parts Company, Sophion, and Product Management University, as well as featureupvote.com. And since Jeff is here today, I'm going to drop all the links for our sponsors into the chat here. But Jeff, why don't you talk a little bit about Method and talk about that upcoming Atlanta event again as well. And we'll drop that link back in there.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so Jeff Meddy with Method here in our Atlanta office. Method is a product strategy, design, and engineering consultancy. We get to work with a lot of great companies to find new markets, launch new products, kind of just really help them on their innovations. We run a lot of innovation labs with large companies. We do a lot of kind of customer omni-channel, customer portals, all that sort of good stuff. So we get to play in a lot of fun things. We're playing in kind of connected cars right now. Embedded banking is a big deal in our space right now. So anyways, get to work with lots of cool clients on fun projects, and work with some cool people. Minus Jason and I, we're probably the worst of the bunch. But anyways, and then so here in Atlanta, in person next or this coming Tuesday, we have an awesome panel discussion on introducing modern product principles into the enterprise. We have Brooke Logan, who leads Pro Digital at Napa Genuine Parts, Edie Kirkman, formerly of Fiserv, and Corey Vogelsonger, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Aaron's, will be hosting a panel discussion on kind of just ways to implement some of the best of modern product, continuous discovery, all those fun things into a large enterprise without doing large, organizational transformation. So it'll be a fun chat. We'll have plenty of beer, wine, and food in the perimeter area. Come join us.
Awesome. And I dropped the link there in the chat and I'll drop it out there on YouTube again as well. And thank you so much. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Method, for your sponsorship. We are so thrilled that you're part of all of this. So
thank you. Sorry, I'm reading chat.
So
failure to get balloons.
So we have got coming up next Friday, March 3rd, we have got our monthly product coffee workshop. These are professional development workshops that we put on every single month. They are open to the public. They are included in the Product Coffee Premium membership. So if you're a Product Coffee Premium member, you get access to each of these workshops at no additional charge. They're $199 each month to join. It's a Zoom-based workshop. We usually jump into Miro or something, and don't just have a presentation about a skill or improving your impact. We actually go in deep and build skills together. We work on the problems that you're facing in your own organization with your own team. And this, the Discovery Frameworks workshop is a really exciting one, because with your registration, you actually get to bring 2 guests. So you can actually bring your entire product trio for the price of one registration. And if you're a Product Coffee Coffee Premium member, that membership's $249 a year if you join on an annual basis. So that's just $50 more than one workshop. You get 12 workshops. And for this month, you can bring 2 guests as well. So you've got just a few days to register for that. Grab it as quick as you can. Go over to productcoffee.com/events, and you will be able to, and you'll see the Discovery Frameworks workshop right there on the page, and you can sign up right from there. We look forward to seeing you on that as well. So, and then this week, we're getting into just some of the open questions that are out there around discovery. So we've got the folks that are here on the call who have some questions. We've got some questions that we've gathered from that people have asked over time. And we're just going to dig in and have a town hall discussion on some of the open questions about implementing continuous discovery, or just good product discovery. It's not just about continuous discovery, it's just about good product discovery in general, and the skills that you need to have greater impact on that. So just a couple of little notes here. You can go over to productcoffee.com/now, and you can see a little bit more about today's session, as well as you'll see the links to all the other upcoming content that we've got. And more importantly, you can jump into productcoffee.com/notes, where you will find a notes document for today's session, where we can jump into Google together. And as you gain insights and hear about ideas that you want to jot down, instead of jotting them down in your own notes, join us in our group notes document. Take notes together. It's another way to collaborate, get to know each other. Drop your LinkedIn link in there if you're part of that discussion, and hit the little star button on the document, because you'll be able to save that into your own Google Drive, save that link, and you'll have the notes document available to you forever. It'll be there as kind of the part of the permanent record of this session, just for being here. So building that kind of collaborative view instead of just taking your own notes creates a greater insights as we go. So I would like folks to start dropping, if you have new questions around discovery that you'd like us to talk about. If you're on YouTube, drop them in the YouTube chat. Just prefix it with a Q colon and your question, and we'll try to pick that up. Same here in the Zoom call. If you have a question or a comment or a thought on discovery practices that you would like to bring to the table, just either raise your hand or just jump right in if there's an opening to do so. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see here. And with that, I think let's get rolling. So one of the first questions that I came across that I see a lot, it's not even so much of a question as a comment. And the comment or the pushback that we've been talking a lot about product discovery in general and continuous discovery as kind of an elevated approach to doing discovery, not just going out and doing an occasional discovery exercise, but building habits that have you constantly gaining new insights. I've had a couple of common questions about how to make that work that we see coming in and the challenges that people see. One of the big comments and questions that come around on a regular basis is, hey, yeah, I love the idea of doing continuous discovery, even the idea of doing like regular weekly discovery activities like Teresa Torres proposes, but getting my team, my design and my engineering team and myself together once a week to do that, it's just not practical. We can't do it in our company. We're too busy. We don't have time to do this. Or my team isn't bought in. They're not sold on the idea. And so how can I get started with doing better discovery along the way, doing more frequent discovery along the way, conducting more frequent discovery exercises along the way when I don't have buy-in around me? How can I actually get started? I want to throw that out there to the audience that we've got here, and get our folks here in the Product Coffee room to answer that question. What have you seen work around really driving adoption of discovery practices, even when you don't necessarily have a whole lot of buy-in around the organization? Anybody want to jump in on that? I know that.
I have a
Awkward
comment.
pause.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
When I try to reflect on why things are hard or easy with people, I reflect on, well, how are people naturally?
Mhm.
And a lot of times, well, it usually comes up with, things we want to avoid. Oh, well, that's human nature. And I think in our history, what was the number one defense tool was awareness of environment. What's going on in our environment? What's danger? What's good? What's bad? So I think really, if you can leverage human nature, I think that's the biggest way of getting something done and continuing. And so I guess when I hear about what's good product people, what's good, a term you usually hear, which doesn't usually make the job description, is natural curiosity. And so I think if you can have people and they're naturally curious, because again, if they're going to do it on their own free time, like, what do you read? If you're reading Business Week and this and that on the side, you're going to bring that to work. So I think just how to make it happen is, again, try to find naturally curious people and also just support them. So when they have input, if you can somehow move that into what you're doing, all the better. So I think that's a good basis. That's not all of it, but I think, again, if you have, back to the comment early on in the general discussion, is, how do you manage and find just ideas,
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of just something that we can all do, is just, manage and support natural curiosity.
That's a really good point, Randy. And one of the things that makes me think of actually is also just there's the notion of finding people who have that natural curiosity, but regardless of overall personality, most of the engineering teams that I've worked with and engineers that I've worked with, and certainly most of the design professionals that I've worked with, actually they have that natural curiosity. They may have burdens that are in there that are blocking them from really expressing that curiosity and following up on that curiosity. So finding ways to nurture the curiosity that's already there with your existing team is another good way to approach it. So maybe partly asking the questions of, what do you think about this? How confident are you in this topic? How might we test that and prove it out? Leads to a customer discussion that might gather engagement. So I love the way you brought curiosity into that. Holly, you've got your hand up. What you got for us?
I do. There's so many things that I loved everything you just said, Randy, and I was nodding along thinking, yeah, I mean, I think my family was telling me I'm an obscenely curious person, to the point of threats, when I ask too many questions sometimes, because I'm like, but why? But why? But wait, why? And I think it's always great to explore those things. And that's how I knew I was in the right thing in product management. But I would say, Jason, I agree that a lot of designers and engineers are curious as well. I think the whole genre of what we do involves a lot of curiosity, not just for the product managers, but I have not always been so blessed to have people who are curious on the other side. I've seen a lot in my career across many, especially enterprise level companies, things that are people that can be great designers and certainly engineers or technical leads, right? And not have that inane curiosity, right? That they're just like, just tell me what we need to do. Just tell me what it needs to do, and I can make it do it. And my magic is in figuring out, their curiosity is in how can I make it do whatever random stuff is going to come out of Holly's mouth in the next 5 minutes, right? Like, oh gosh, she's writing on a Post-it note. I'm terrified about what it's going to say. That's where their curiosity is. So I think where my hand went up when we were talking about this is, I'm like, you can imagine, anyone who knows me, I'm like anything else, my opinion here is, you got to make it fun, right? I would be Matt Waller and say, you got to make it sexy. I was so happy when you said that word, Allison, because I was like, I'm the one that usually throws that out in a sentence at work. And people are like, did she just say the S word? Oh God, somebody call HR. Like, well, your body's not sexy. I'm not buying it. Anyway, it's got to be compelling. It's got to be exciting. But I think when you talk about trying to bring it into the everyday, Jason, right? It's like, you got to bring these people along with them, and you've got to jazz them up. I think a lot more people, to your point on those people being curious as well, even the ones that don't seem like they're curious or are voicing something that sounds like they're not curious, they are on some level. It's like they've shut it down, or they don't know that it's okay to be curious. So if you kind of spark that for them, it's like, well, here's what I think, but what about the other side, right? What, because could have happened here? You know, what if it hadn't rained the day of Waterloo? Like, what would have happened in that battle? Let's just quander that for a moment. You know, if you really spark them and give them something to feed off of, they'll come with you, but you got to make it fun. And so figure out how you bring that in. I think that's a great and important thing in work anyway, right? If we spend more time at work than we do doing anything else, if you're not having fun, then you're not living. Very depressing thoughts, right? On a Wednesday, it's cloudy in Atlanta, but I don't know where everyone else is located, but it's kind of depressing. But if you can make that exciting and you can make it engaging, they're gonna want to engage in that activity with you, right? It's like, this is fun. Now you just made like Fun Thursday out of this customer, type discovery and engagement.
Yeah, and making it fun, one of the sessions that we've got actually coming up as part of the customer interview series next month in March, on March 15th, Diane Bowman is going to be here talking about a customer spotlight series that she used to run with her engineering team at IBM, that really she would go do the voice of the customer work. She would go do the research, and she would increasingly engage the entire team in participating in that process and pulling it together into digestible, bite-sized communication. But it's going to be a great session. Mark your calendar for March 15th. We'll actually have it online for registration pretty soon as well. And that'll be a great session for you. And it kind of falls right into that making it fun idea that you're talking about, just like creating more engaging ways of bringing the concept to the team. Allison, what's on your mind? What you got?
Yeah, so echoing and piggybacking off of what both Randy and Holly said, the idea of, right, everyone's busy. This is the last thing I want to do. It's one more meeting, one more thing, one more something on my schedule. So like bringing it to, like, right, if you don't have that customer interaction happening weekly, how can you bring it into your regularly scheduled meetings? So we do a thing with our Scrum practice where we, hey, what's the customer say about something like this? We might pick a single topic. It's no more than a 5 or 10 minute post Scrum topic once a week. And we try and make sure that, right, it's out there. So you don't have to take action on it, but you're going to get a healthy dose of it either way. And then, right, when we have larger opportunities to engage with customers or gather that research, we try to obviously add those meetings on, but making sure that it's always there and top of mind, I think is one way to get folks buy-in and interest about, like, what do our customers think about this? What do our customers want to do with this? We hear the stakeholder says this, or we hear, our leadership says this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Completely. Jerry, I think we got one more hand. No, we got a couple more hands. Jerry, bring it in.
I guess you must have triggered people. Yeah, a couple of observations. One is, I've always found it unfortunate, because I think the product community is obsessed with asking permission to talk to clients, and I don't really understand why. But what I try to do when I encounter that is to push back and say, no, your client community is a shared asset. You have, as a product professional, as much right to talk to them as anyone, and recalibrate the conversation around access to the clients so that you have what you need. But I really do see this. Thanks, Holly. I really do see this obsession with asking permission, and yet your revenue team doesn't ask permission. Your account manager team doesn't ask permission. So you need to come up with a treaty with your colleagues and make sure that access to the shared asset of the client community is appropriate for what you need as well. And then the other thing, and this is a little tongue in cheek, but only a little, you guys do change jobs a lot, for good reasons and sometimes for not good reasons. Make it part of the conversation that your method of doing product management includes routine, and that's key, routine and regular access to the clients. And let them say in the interview process, no, we really don't want you to do that. Nah, we don't really want you to go out and talk to clients. And of course, they're not going to say that. So just make it an expectation, and just bake it into the job that you're applying for. And if
I
people
love
push
it, Jerry.
back, you probably don't want to
Sorry.
work there.
Yep. I think the way I've heard that, Jerry, I have had an interview and it turned out being one of my favorite jobs of all time, but I did have an interview where I talked about, I really want regular access to customers. And the response that I got was, well, yeah, we do that too, but we've got great proxies. You can talk to customer service and client support all you want all the time. They know a whole bunch of stuff about what the customers do. We've got a lot of experts in our sales team and so on. Yeah, they do. They have their perspective, but they're not the customers and they have their own motivations. And so let's dig in directly with the customers. And there was actually a culture there that did have a good customer engagement model for the product management team. You had to lean into it to make it happen. It wasn't automatic. It wasn't a habit, but the access was there. But there was this natural bent throughout the organization. Is, let's talk to the internal experts first before we bother our customers. And that was a B2B organization, and B2B and B2C are definitely have some differences in how you have to approach discovery as a general rule. So, and that's a thing to keep in mind as well. I think the access as a general rule in B2C to consumers for discovery can be easier and lower cost than the access in a B2B environment. B2B, it's a fairly high cost. Relatively speaking, my perception is it's a fairly high cost time transaction for your B2B customers, but at the same time, it's a little bit, once you get that process in place, once you establish that culture within the organization, it's very easy to make that natural, that your customers expect to be talking with the product management team on a regular basis. So
just a quick, a little bit of a quipping for pushback when they say talk to the inside experts first.
Mm-hmm.
They are in fact experts on their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're not experts on the work that the customer does. Only the customer is expert at their work. And that's why you have to talk to them directly.
I
Absolutely.
know Manisha's hand up, and I put this in the chat, Jerry, but I love what you just said. I would add on like exactly that point, right? You want to, I think it's good to vet yourself internally with what you know about your customer, right? It's just kind of like prepping for that conversation anyway, right? But take it that way. Like it's not a instead of, it's a let me find out what we think we know about that. Right. Or things so you don't go into that conversation with the customer sounding like you don't know the customer or you don't know things that you should already know about them. Right. But it's never a replacement, Jason, to your point. It's not only do you have a different view of that internally, and you're saying that as well, Jerry, right? But there's no substitute. There's just absolutely no
substitute. Okay, we're done here. There's no substitute.
There's often a greater context to the work than what the expert thinks it is. The expert may be focused on one task or one responsibility, and the worker is usually very often doing several and juggling and optimizing. So when someone says, why are you doing that over there? Well, because I'm also doing this over here. And to really make it work for a shift or a day or a week or a quarter, I'm kind of doing this thing.
And I just want to throw in one more quote because I was going to end with that. But just somebody said, well, one time, if you don't talk to your customers, they're talking about you.
Oh.
So you should throw that in. We challenges you about talking to a customer. Say, if I don't talk to them, they're talking about us. It's not good.
That's a good one. Manesh, you have been patiently waiting, and I know you're driving, so I'll give you a second to jump in there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So my brain went to, why are you doing discovery? Why are you doing continuous discovery? And if you answer that question, you may be able to bridge the gap to see if the counterpart, the engineering manager, the designer, whoever you're working with, has the same common why. You might find that bridge to explain and say, this is why we need to sit down and do it. When somebody says, I don't have time for this, we don't have a time available for the schedule, it means that I don't see value in sitting here and doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not aligned with my why. So to everybody else, why are we doing discovery? Why are we doing continuous discovery? We talk about talking to the customers directly and all this other fun stuff. Yes, but why? What is the outcome, desired outcome? What is the desired, what is the outcomes that are, that we get from doing this exercise? And then we can use that to bridge the gap between our peers.
That's a great point, and it does lead to a really big question that I think, with all the hype around continuous discovery habits and the writing and the thought leadership that's going on around this topic right now, there is this kind of, well, of course you want to do continuous discovery, but you're asking the right question, Manesh, is, but why do I need to engage with a customer in the first place? Why is this important? And being able to articulate why it's important and build a common understanding of why it's important is key to creating that alignment in the first place. That's a great point.
And one of the things I've found is that people don't really care about, learning what the customer wants and stuff, but they care about what they're doing and what they want to get out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that makes them feel good about what they built, for example, especially when it comes to the engineering team, and they can then present to their peers in their industry to say, look what I built, right? I built this thing and this and that, and I did it this way, right? And so now, from that perspective, wouldn't you want to build something really cool, number one, and also, generate real outcome? Or would you want to just build stuff, to Holly's point, just tell me what to build, that actually is impacted by the users, or that somebody's life's changed, and see if you can get commonality within that realm. And then that's why I say ask the why. That way you can try and kind of figure out where there's commonality.
That's a great call out. Thank you, Manesh.
Love it, Manesh. Can't text you that, so I'm going to say it. Drive safe.
Faith. Hey, Faith, you got your hand up for a few minutes here too. Welcome back.
Hi. I promise not to throw a spanner into the works today.
Oh, please do.
No, I just want to kind of reinforce this thread of conversation of Holly. Because, and I wanted to add what I think is a very kind of particular, a very specific reason why product needs to do their own discovery that sometimes other folks in the company aren't really thinking about. In addition, or maybe just to put a finer point on what some of the things people have said, and that is that customer success people, when things come in from the customer relationship folks, those people in the company have a very specific mission to keep the customer satisfied, help them use the product. But if the customer reports an issue or a problem, they're often talking about a symptom. And so the customer might report a symptom in the first place. And even if they don't, the customer success manager's first impulse is often, how can I come up with a workaround for them? What's the simplest way I can think of to solve this problem in the product? And they're having a very narrow focus on this particular company and this particular account, and what appears to me to be the fastest, easiest way to make this customer happier right now in the moment and make this problem go away. And I think companies are not often realizing that product people are uniquely in the position of taking all these little bits of particular specific problems that people are reporting and correlating that information with each other, synthesizing that information, and tracing that back to root causes in order to make better decisions about the product. And ultimately, that means the benefit of that to our business is that product people can have more impact on revenue and retention because of that unique perspective. So it's kind of like, give a person a fish versus teaching them to fish. And if we solve this one problem for one person one time with a Band-Aid, we're making the product worse, more than likely. And we're also not having any impact beyond the few $100s that it matters to this particular account. So I would just kind of add that, and maybe that little bit in terms of helping persuade business folks that the reason the product unique perspective is important as opposed to just order taking is because we can deliver more bang for whatever that product change effort turns out to be. So for what it's worth, you're on mute, Jason.
We're all just loving everything you said, Faith. That's really what it is.
Yep. And that's exactly what I was saying. Is there's just a lot going on in the chat here in the Zoom, with a lot of applause and agreement on that. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much, Faith. Really appreciate that. Joey.
I just wanted to echo kind of what Faith was saying around that time with the customers and being able to have it versus like someone else's viewpoint that might be more narrow. I'm having that same thing go on in this new position is, I'm trying to think broadly what a small business that has a vehicle needs. And that could be beyond something where it has its roots in like fuel carding and payments. Like there's a lot that a small business that needs to be mobile could need. And a lot of the focus in even the stuff that's come in from the UX team, in from the research that's been done, focus rather than broadening it out. And so that makes most of the information that's being provided to me useless because I don't understand what are the bigger problems for a small business. I'm debating at this point to follow a plumber around. Like that's where I'm at. Like, because there's a lot more that we haven't even captured yet. And so making sure, I guess, a piece there is that there's alignment over what that vision is and what is in scope of what you want to do as a company, and making sure that the discovery is aligned to that.
I'll jump in here just kind of on this topic as well and kind of echo that. Hey folks, it's been a while.
Hey Matt,
Good to see
welcome
everybody
back.
again. Hello. Hi. So two kind of thoughts on this. First, in terms of we were talking earlier about asking for forgiveness, going to talk with customers. I 100% agree. You need to be talking with customers broadly across, but I will play the devil's advocate on I think it was brought up before. I have watched some product people get chased the hell out of customer sites because they didn't do basic research and walked in and wasted people's time. So by all means, get in there and talk to them. It's super important. You need to sync up, particularly with, depending on your type of industry, where our customers can be super busy and they take it as an insult with somebody to come in and not have a basic background. I've literally watched people fly to customer sites for a week meeting and get chased out within the morning. And that's unfortunate. So please don't do that. But that said, I think talking directly with customers across, depending on the background, right? I'm sort of, business to business here. And what I'm watching now, and I've seen before as well, is stakeholders or whether it be customers internally, externally, I'm watching them actually have what I consider to be sort of contradictory goals. So I think it's important to go out across the enterprise, see what each organization, each group, each customer is looking for, and then ultimately be able to, rather than just kind of taking orders and doing, just sort of, feature factory type work where you're just taking in orders, to be able to sort of synthesize, okay, well, this group needs this group needs this. They're potentially contradictory. How do we put those two things together rather than just sort of build something that may actually hurt another group. So I think that's one more reason to kind of get out, you know, and directly interact with all of the different customers, with all the stakeholders across the organization, and be able to make an intelligent decision before you spend the effort to go build.
Absolutely. That's a great call out. And it goes to credibility when you're in that conversation in the first place. And I've seen some of the exact same things that you're talking about. Very rarely are you in such a nascent product scenario with such a nascent understanding of a market and a customer that it's time for a 101 conversation. You don't want to necessarily go to most of these with a 101 mentality. You're going to gain insights that only that customer can give you, that you can't get elsewhere.
Totally agreed.
And some of those insights can be validation. So you walk in with an understanding, and you're playing that back, and or maybe not even playing it back, but you're probing at that customer's experience and that customer's experience map to confirm that it's in alignment with your understanding.
Yes.
And building that way. But that is way more that I loved Holly's example. So you're a bank, you have problems with money, right? So that's a
True
really
story.
Yep.
Sorry to interject. True story. And to your point, Matt, totally. Had a VP of product that an entire customer base started calling all kinds of names that shouldn't be repeated here, and said, don't ever, ever, ever bring him to talk to us again. And we're so glad that you're there. If you ever leave, we're not using this product anymore. Fortunately, he left the company before I did, so it was fine.
Good.
He was only there a minute, right?
Victory.
So there are a few different perspectives on the notion of synthesis and how to do good synthesis, and bring those insights back into the organization. And Allison pointed something. You want to jump in here, Allison, and kind of share kind of some of that perspective here with the larger group?
Sure. So I was hearing the group and understand, right? I totally get that it's product's responsibility to champion the customer, understand the customer, represent the customer's needs to the team. But I feel like my personal experiences have been, it's a full contact sport. So, and perhaps that's been my experience to date and the places that I've worked at. But I feel like when I bring my engineering team along, I learn something more about what's needed. When I bring my design team along, there's things that I don't know, I don't understand. And when I try and filter it just through what I said goes, and that sounds very harsh to say it that way, but when we try to synthesize, there's some risk in missing other people's perspectives and getting a different set of understanding together. So I don't want to poo-poo anybody's thoughts or opinions, but I think like it's been my experience that it's a full contact sport. Now you've got to, taper that down so that we're not all in all the meetings of the world and don't have time to do meaningful work. But I think that's something that always I caution myself. Am I vacuuming this information to my team? And that's when I have to raise my hand and say, hey, look at everything. I had a thing last week where we got some feedback around some early prototypes. And it was sent to me from the stakeholder. I'm like, you're going to make that shareable and the whole team's going to watch it. I don't care if you said, Allison, please go do this. Allison doesn't bang on keyboards and write code. Allison does not make pretty pixels. I'm happy to be the conduit and the message bringer and helping synthesize what we decide to do, but I'm not going to decide for the team. So I'll just pause there.
I love that, Allison. Oh, sorry, Jason. I was just going to jump in there and add and say, I think that's totally a great way to think about it. Right. Because without even saying full contact sport, which for some reason always makes me think it's like controversial, but it's just, and I say this a lot, but two people can hear the same thing differently. Right. So I think it's almost like, and I'm not saying this as like a protect yourself at all times, CYA kind of thing. Right. But it is kind of a protect yourself as the product person, because you have a bias, right? And you are going to hear it a certain way, and you can miss, with all good intentions and love, you can still miss what your customer or the user, whoever you're talking to, what they were really saying, right? So having more people in the conversation is always, always good, just from that perspective to me, but also people with those different mindsets, right, or different ways of thinking, your design team or your technical leads and folks like that are definitely going to hear that differently or have different ideas. Sometimes just from being part of that conversation and hearing it, and they will have from you regurgitating it later, right? I think there's a place for product management to be the owner, ultimately of it, right? And be able to be the decision maker, if you will, perhaps, but not to be, and therefore to be a leader and a driver, obviously, of discovery and champion, we need to do it, but not, to your point, to be like it's just me on this soccer field. That doesn't really make any sense. I'm so sorry, Jason.
No, I think I think you're right on. And the angle that I was going to look at it from is, Allison, you raise a great point. I think, fortunately, through a lot of other societal changes that we're seeing, I think there is an elevated conversation and an improving practice across the business world in more collaborative team discussions. I think we've got a long way to go, like so many other things, but I think it is becoming an increasing expectation that one person doesn't need to be the holder of the knowledge. We were talking earlier in the session, if you're just joining us, we were talking about our last book club where we're reading Start at the End by Matt Wallert. And Matt went a few times, kind of referred to the Mad Men mentality, where you have a bunch of kind of stereotypical leaders sitting around a room, making the decisions about what's going to be done and handing it down. And we talk a lot in product development and product management and in the innovation world about being more outcome focused and trying to drive companies to not be feature factories in such a way. And when there are a few different groups of development and design team members, and there is the mentality of, please just tell me what to go do and I'll go do it. And then there's the other that's, no, I really want to be part of the problem solving process. I want to be part of the process, not just implementing what somebody else decides, and finding those advocates and champions to make it that quote unquote full contact sport, to bring the whole team to the table. It might not be the engineering team member that you would expect it to be, but it's somebody who brings that engineering perspective that kind of becomes part of that discovery trio to create that more robust collaborative view. I was going to look it up and I couldn't find it, but there was somebody who coined a phrase back a decade ago, saying, product management is the conscience of the company. And I've always liked that. And it applies to what you're saying here, I think, especially because it's not just about the product manager being the expert and the executor of a discovery process. It's about the product manager being the factor, the force multiplier that Jerry's referring to, that brings discovery practices into the organization, creates a culture, helps to drive that culture, helps to build that culture of prioritizing that work and getting people on board with it, being the conscience of the company. This is how we need to operate to get better results, and applying all the techniques that we have to demonstrate the value along the way and bring more people in, so that it's not just a product manager synthesizing their findings and their learnings and sharing them, but really inspiring others to be part of that process and to take greater ownership in the customer experience. So let's see here. We've got a few minutes
Because they're
left.
the captain of the enterprise, Jason, is what you're saying. Product management should be the captain of the enterprise. But you see, it's only the whole team, and they should be on the bridge.
Or are we the
She
guy
needed
that-
to get her space plug in here. I'm sure that was going to happen.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well,
I can talk Voyager too, if anyone wants to do it.
Holly, that's a really interesting question. Should you be Jean-Luc Picard or Counselor Troy?
That is right. So I put steward
Diamond.
above in the conversation, and I hear captain, but I want to say a captain that functions like a steward. So I want to be representative of our entire team's approach.
I mean, this could be a whole separate conversation. I don't want to get us off track here, but if you watch the old series, which is still on, by the way, channel 232 on your cable network, you know, who is it? Yes, Captain Picard gives the orders. Undoubtedly, he is the captain. He is in charge. But who is it in that group that really synthesizes the situation and guides the organization to be true to their values, true to their mission? You know, it's Counselor Troy, and I think that's what Jason was saying, and that's why I applauded. I put the applause icon up because conscience, that works for me. Force multiplier, you know, there's a whole set of value that you can be bringing to organizations, but you know, each of those jobs has got to be peeled off and done right. And you know, and if you embrace sort of this squishy 21st century view of product management that we're talking about, which I think is correct, by the way, you know, if you don't do all of the jobs competently, then you can also be directing your organization in an adverse way. You know, if you sit in your office and all you do is conjure up features, never talk to clients, never do your homework, you know, you can drive your organization to bankruptcy, right? In a heartbeat. Because you have this distinct place in the organization, and you are this force multiplier, and everything you do has ripples. Decisions made years ago, you live with in 2023, right? You know, we're all familiar with
Sins
that.
of our past, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Product past.
Our product past.
So let me ask a question from a different perspective. So as I said earlier, because of the writing and the attention that we have on this topic, we have we kind of approached this conversation even with an assumption that a continuous discovery process is a good idea. Did Microsoft grow to the dominance that they had globally through a continuous discovery process along the way? Did IBM grow to the dominance that they had for decades with a continuous discovery process along the way? So these ideas are really exciting and valuable and useful, but though I would suggest that both of those companies, and especially the IBM perspective, really is the exact opposite case, where you do have a very knowledgeable set of leaders driving direction and strategy and validating along the way in an informal manner without the same discipline that we're talking about in these modern practices. How do we account for their success along the way without these processes that we're saying are critical for product managers to bring to their team? You might want to take that and tell me how Faith, jump in. Love it.
Yeah, just the first thing I would say is that they might not have. There's two things I think to tease out in what you're saying, and one is that, you know, there is kind of a school of thought that says, you know, just because we're doing discovery doesn't mean we should be discounting our own expertise if we have it, or our own experience if we do have domain experience. Maybe we have worked, you know, a lot of people come into product from the domain that now they're creating products for. And so does that mean, like, if you're creating an educational assessment product and you're a former teacher, does that mean that you should forget your classroom experience and not bring that to your product work? So one thing to tease out, I think, is, you know, is that one is that, you know, the definition of engineering is applying technology to real world problems. So that is the specific sort of mental skill that engineers are trained in, is looking at the world and then figuring out how technology can solve something. So I think some of that, you know, comes into play. And then, you know, testing and iterating, even though the processes might not have been called the same. And waterfall, I'm not an advocate for waterfall, but I think there's probably more discovery going on than we realize from our perspective today. And, the third thing I would tease out from that is that there were positions that kind of predated product management, business analysts, business systems analysts, process analysts, people who were actually working with customers, doing a lot of discovery about how the customer's business worked, who did what, how information flowed, what tools they were using, where were there opportunities to gain efficiencies. And, we were looking at, cycle time and, wait time and rework. And, so I think there was a lot of discovery happening. I think it just didn't look like today. So that's what I would put out there. And I'm sure others have other perspectives, and yes, Holly, I agree. You don't want to fall into the trap of just writing on your experience. So that is kind of the other thing to go, well, I was a teacher, so I know I can represent everyone's perspective about educational assessment. And that's also then you're also violating the other rule about making yourself your own proxy. So.
Absolutely. And one of the elements that kind of goes into that for me is the notion of when you're engaging in discovery exercises, making sure that you're engaging with them, whether they be formal or informal, and to your point, whether they may not look like they do today, but along the way, are you conducting discovery exercises with the right audience, with the right customers in the first place? There is a big fear, and one of the big challenges that people see in early stage, less mature implementations of a modernized discovery process is that voice of the last customer that you spoke to, getting the bias of the most recent conversation. So I run into a customer that has a problem that is burning with them, and that suddenly becomes the most important thing that I'm thinking about, because I'm sitting right here. I've got empathy with my customer. I understand the challenge that they're facing, and I want to go solve it right away. And that causes us to maybe lose focus on strategy and think about, well, if we serve the customer fast enough and frequently enough in the way that they're looking at us to serve them, then we will, our company, our roadmap, our product, we will innovate in the right direction just by letting the customers lead us there. And I think that's one of the, we teased an AI component of discovery a little while ago. And some of the tools that I have seen, and some of the companies that I've seen out there that made meteoric rises and then just kind of petered out, were really leaning into, hey, we don't actually have to go talk to our customers. We have all these engagement channels where we can gather information. We can look at how they're using the site. We can aggregate data, and we can understand where their pains are, where their challenges are, and we can invest in the right areas. We don't have to actually do that personal discovery. We're doing discovery through automated, through machine learning, through data analysis, and that's how we're doing it. The challenge that I see with that mentality is it is very easy to just follow the trends of who your users are and who your customers are, and not make sure that you're following the trends of the customers that you intend to serve, of the market that you intend to have. And that's, especially in an early stage company, you're identifying a market that you want to serve. But because you're throwing a lot of things at the wall to see what sticks, it's very easy to attract customers that are not in your real target niche, in your real target market. And so you're starting to gather data and gather information and gather perspective from customers that you actually don't want to serve long term. I've been a part of this personally in a company that went from serving a mid-enterprise clientele and said, no, we're going to go up market and we're going to focus on large enterprise. And then several years later said, actually, we're going to go down market and go to mid and small enterprise. So you're talking about a massive shift in who you're going to serve. So when you're doing when you're conducting discovery exercises with mid enterprise customers, and you're trying to start attracting large enterprise customers, the data, the perspective, the insights that you're getting, the opportunities that you're discovering may not be relevant to those enterprise customers. And certainly when you move down market, the the insights and the knowledge that you have may not be relevant to an entirely new market. So making sure that your discovery exercises and your gathering and your insights are being developed around the customers that you want to have, not just the customers that you do have, is a really critical piece of strategic product management that the product manager and team needs to make sure is being enforced and brought to the table as part of that process as well. So let's see here. We have got just a minute to wrap. We've got just a few minutes to wrap this up. Any final parting thoughts? What I'd love to hear is some number one tips for inspiring a discovery practice with your own team. And I would just love to hear just like a quick 15 seconds from as many people as we can get in is how would you advise people to lean into building better discovery practices in their organization? I know we've got some folks on this call who have said very clearly, our organization does not do discovery as well as I would like us to. What's one thing I can do to make it better?
I could speak to that. So we've put in a lot of routines. I think I mentioned a routine a couple of weeks ago where I asked my team to talk to at least two clients a week, and then we have a routine each week to discuss it amongst the team, what they learned. But outside of that, we also have weekly routines around presenting utilization and business stats and data to the entire team. And we have routines around presenting to our CEO that we do on a regular basis. So just kind of putting in routines that almost force your teams to do the discovery work in order to, not kind of fall flat when they have to present it to the rest of kind of the product team. That's seemed to kind of put my team over this past year in a better spot with the discovery.
Excellent. Thank you.
I was gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna actually echo that. The word that came to my mind just very quickly was just be deliberate, right? So that means have a plan, whatever that plan is, and make time for it, right? I almost think the approach is less important than just the deliberateness to move forward with it, which I think is where Anna kind of was going with, like, here's our plan, and to me, yeah, the actual approach much less important than the fact that you have one and that you're spending time on it.
Excellent. Holly said she couldn't find the reaction button, but she's got one. Holly, your turn.
Sorry that I couldn't find the unmute button. So I think I would just go back to where you said 15 seconds, back to making it fun, right? So if you're talking about a tip for bringing that in to your team every day, figure out a way that your team likes to engage or something that's fun to them and bring it into that context, right? And it doesn't need to be the entire Star Trek, Star Wars debate, right? But if your team, every time you find them, they're on a water cooler having that debate, maybe that's a thing that you want to tie in. Just figure it out, right? What is going to connect the dots for them. And I love what you said, Matt, it's like be deliberate. But I think by showing that you cared enough to bring it into something they already connect with, then you're being as deliberate as you possibly can.
Awesome.
Faith, who does know where her reactions panel is.
Faith.
I would say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just because you can't do discovery maybe the way you really, really want or believe it should be done, don't let that stop you from doing every kind of discovery that you can, using every kind of source that you can find. And in particular, with respect to customer success people and internal proxies, I wouldn't turn down those meetings. My tip there, I guess, is, I kind of ask them the questions I would ask customers. I ask them the whys. I ask them to describe the customer's process, what else is going on. And when they discover that when they realize they don't know the answers to the questions I have, they often volunteer to arrange the phone call or arrange the meeting with the customer. So I guess that's my other just real practical, actionable tip in the proxy situation.
So And that goes back to the discussion that we had earlier in a really powerful way. If you've done your foundational research and your discovery exercises are about validating things that you think you know and learning things that you know you don't know, then it becomes much easier to break through that access to the customer challenge simply by saying that I've got here's some questions that we can't answer internally. We need to talk to people to get answers of this for. Help me make that happen. Thank you, Faith. That was a great one. And with that, we are 1 minute from the top of the hour, and many of us have morning meetings and stand-ups to go to. I want to thank everybody for being here as part of Product Coffee today. Next Friday, March 3rd, we will have our Discovery Frameworks workshop. You can go to productcoffee.com and sign up for that. And that'll be led by Jerry and Allison, who you saw here on the call today. And we've also got, starting next week on March 1st, we'll be starting our new series on customer interviews. It's going to be a great series. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. Have a great week, and if you're in Atlanta, we hope to see you tomorrow night at the Park Tavern down at Piedmont Park for our monthly Atlanta Product Management Happy Hour. We'll see you there.
If you haven't registered for it yet, hit productcoffee.com/events and do that.
Yay, yes, so we can tell them how many people to expect.